Perfect. I'm gonna record. Alrighty, let's get started. So everyone, my name is Lainey. I am currently a dietetic intern for Morrison Healthcare, and you are joining me for my teaching kitchen. Today we will be making pregnancy perfect chickpea and spinach bowls. And we'll talk about why this recipe is, to me, considered pregnancy perfect in a little bit. But for now, we're going to go ahead and get started. This recipe is going to take around 35 minutes. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. First, we're going to wash our hands and wash our carrots. So let's go ahead and do that first off. I already have everything washed, so I'll just chat while y'all are doing that. The reason we're washing our hands and our produce is to make sure there's no dirt or grime on there. For pregnancy, it's super important to make sure we are washing everything and ensuring that we are not having any cross-contamination, because food-borne illnesses can be especially dangerous during pregnancy. So making sure we're trying to stay as safe as possible is very important. While we're doing that, got our hands and our vegetable that can be washed, and we're gonna go ahead and start our quinoa. So for the quinoa, this is our smaller pot that we're using. We're gonna go ahead and combine 1 cup of quinoa into there and 1 3/4 cup water. Quinoa is a super simple grain to cook. Water and quinoa, that's all you need. We're gonna put that on the stove once we have that ready. So that's a cup of quinoa, 1 3/4 cup water in our pot. And once that's in there, we're gonna set that to simmer. Or sorry, gonna get that to boil. Set that to boil. So set it on high to boil. Once we all have that, we'll come back to our screens. I have a cat at my feet that keeps punching me with his head. So if I look down, that's what I'm looking at. While that is going on to boil, we're going to start prepping our protein. In this recipe that I sent y'all, I said turkey or tofu. Both are awesome. I'm using tofu because I am vegetarian, but you can do whatever protein you'd like. One really important note is if you are doing turkey, we're going to make sure that anything that's touching raw turkey is getting washed, including our hands, including our cutting board, including our knife. Anything that's touching raw turkey is getting washed. For me, for the tofu, I'm going to go ahead and cut this up. But if you're doing turkey, that whole turkey, 12 ounces of turkey, can go ahead and go into your larger pot with a tablespoon of olive oil. So for the tofu, I am cutting up my tofu into little pieces. You can always just crumble it, but I prefer little pieces of tofu over crumbled tofu, just a texture preference for me. But obviously that is a personal choice. So I have a tablespoon of olive oil prepped here, but it doesn't need to necessarily be exactly a tablespoon. However much you think is going to help keep things from sticking, give a little bit of healthy fats in there also. So we're getting our olive oil in our pot, turning that on medium-high. And we're going to go ahead and add, once you're done cutting up your protein, go ahead and add your protein. Tofu or turkey. Adding that in to our pot. And we're going to give that a stir. Getting everything coated so it can start getting cooked. If you're cooking turkey, we're cooking this to get rid of the pink on this first step. If you're cooking tofu, we're just kind of cooking it to heat it. Turkey needs to be cooked to an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit by the end of cooking. And we are cooking this for a good bit of time, so you really don't have to particularly worry about that, but that's just a good thing to keep in mind, that we're making sure that our turkey is being fully cooked. Another important food safety issue for pregnancy specifically, but also always. Good thing to remember always. So we're gonna try to remember to stir our protein every once in a while. And while that's cooking down, we're going to start our vegetables. For this recipe, it calls for carrots, 2 medium-sized carrots. I've got these 3 little ones. That's what I have. 1 onion, 4 cloves of garlic, however much garlic you want, doesn't matter. We're going to start with our carrots. I didn't get that. Oop. See? Oh my goodness. Knife safety. Very important to use our knives very carefully. When you're holding a knife, you want to pinch the right by the handle with your pointer finger and your thumb like this and grasp the handle. This gives you a lot of control over the blade. So I'm gonna cut off the tops of my carrot. You may have already done that. However, give this a stir. I'm hearing it. It's yelling. So for these carrots, the thicker you cut them, the longer they're gonna cook, the longer they're gonna take to get really soft. So the thickness of these rounds is gonna determine the al dente, like tooth bite of your carrots in the end. So if you want them really soft, try to cut as thin as possible rounds. If you want them with a little bit more crunch to them, we're cutting them a little bigger. So go ahead and start cutting up your carrot. One thing is this doesn't need to be beautiful. It's going in a stew. But if you want to try for some really pretty knife cuts, that's up to you. Sometimes it's really fun to try to be particular. And sometimes it's annoying. So however you're wanting to cut up those carrots, you do you. Make it your own. Recipe is completely yours. So we're getting our carrots chopped. When we're cutting and we're nearing the end, we're curling our fingers in. We don't want to cut any fingers off. No nicking. No blood. That's not part of the recipe. Thank goodness. So just cutting up these carrots. That olive oil getting nice and hot is a good reminder to stir. And while I'm thinking of that, look at that. Your quinoa may be boiling at this point. If it is, we're going to cover and reduce to a simmer. If you don't know what a simmer looks like, it's when bubbles are just barely coming up. We are also going to set a timer for 15 minutes for our quinoa. So I'll set a timer, and at that point, you'll know 15 minutes has gone off on your end. All right, so your carrots may be cut up, maybe just on the way. We are gonna start cutting our onion. My boyfriend Will does not like onion, so I didn't include onion last time I cooked it, but that just shows you if you don't like onion, leave it out, make it your own. Onions can be difficult to cut, so try your best, but we're gonna start by just cutting off the ends of your onion. Peeling, I'm gonna cut it in half at this point, and I'm gonna peel the outside layer. Getting rid of that skin, that flaky skin, getting to the good part of that onion. All right. I'm gonna give my tofu a stir. And I'm gonna make sure my quinoa is at a simmer, which it is. Now we're gonna keep on cutting up our onion. The fun way to cut an onion, the way that, like the chefs all do, is they cut it kind of in half. And then they make slits towards the end, but not all the way through. So you can see I cut it in half here. And then I cut some nice thin slits, but not all the way to the end. Just doing that. And then when you cut against those slits, like perpendicular to those ones you just made, you're gonna get nice small pieces of onion. Again, the smaller the pieces, the quicker they're gonna cook down, the softer they're gonna cook down. So if you don't like onion, this can be a really great way of kind of hiding it by making those pieces as small as possible. Starting to cry. We're good. We're literally fine. Everyone's fine. Okay. Woo! All right, I'm gonna do half an onion. You can cut up your whole onion if you'd like. Can I get a thumbs up once people are ending their cutting their onion? Allison's done. How are we doing, everybody? Reese is done. Leela's done. All right, now we're gonna move on to our garlic. Recipe calls for 4 cloves. I love garlic. Do as much garlic as you personally want. Oh my God, my eyes. Hope y'all are okay. I cannot see. All right. That's 4. I'm gonna do 5 for good measure. Cutting up garlic cloves can be so annoying. So the trick my mom taught me and that you'll hear on any cooking channel is to take your garlic, flat edge of the knife, palm it. Gonna break the skin off the garlic clove and you can peel it. All right, let's give our tofu or turkey a nice stir in there. Quinoa is still simmering. And let's get back to our garlic. Making sure we're checking those every once in a while. Hit with the flat edge, easier to peel. Easier, not easy, still, obviously, for some of us. Might still be difficult. All right. Flatten, peel, discard. This one, when I peeled it, it just came off with the skin. Look at that. That's always fun. Right? Give me a thumbs up once your garlic's peeled. Thumbs up. All right, let's chop it. Maybe you've already chopped it. Maybe you were quicker than me. That's lovely. Don't brag. Garlic, again, doesn't need to be perfect. It's going to cook down. But just giving it a nice rough chop. Get those pieces small. And again, using as much garlic as you want. Garlic is always measured with the heart for me. Rough chop. All right. Who's got all of their veggies chopped? Once all of our veggies are chopped, we are adding them to our giant pot. Adding to our pot. See on this view, just putting them in there with the tofu and the olive oil, or your protein in your olive oil, I should say. Yeah, I see Allison's adding a little more olive oil. That's a great idea at this point. If it's looking a little dry in there, once you add your veggies in, giving them a nice stir. They're also, at this point, going to add our spices. On the spices, I have them kind of pre-measured, but again, add whatever you want. On the recipe, it says fennel, it says oregano, it says crushed red pepper. I also added garlic, onion powder, and Italian seasoning. So go ahead and add whatever spices you want at this point into your pot. Giving it a stir. All right. Give me a thumbs up if we've got our veggies, our protein, our olive oil, and our spices in the pot. Take your time. Risa, we ready? We good? Over there?
Our turkey just needs a little minute, but then we're gonna put it back in.
Perfect.
But you can keep going.
Perfect. Mine's definitely needing a little touch more olive oil. And I just want to say, look how cute this olive oil bottle is. I think Risa gave this. My sister gave this to my mom for Christmas. It is so cute. All right. Letting that cook down for a little bit. And while we're doing that, we're going to handle our chickpeas. So your chickpeas, you may need to open your can. You may need to strain them and wash them if you haven't already. Straining your chickpeas. Well, actually, you know what? I'll wait. Looks like everyone's doing something. We'll wait. Once we're ready. Okay. So for the chickpeas, we're going to want to make sure they are strained and rinsed. This is going to remove any excess sodium. I know the chickpea called for, or the recipe called for reduced sodium chickpeas. You still want to rinse them. This is going to get most of that sodium and allow you to control the sodium in this recipe. So once we have our chickpeas, let's go ahead and give me a thumbs up, please.
Hey, Lane.
Yeah.
How do you know when quinoa is ready?
I have that timer for 15 minutes. Once that timer's off, we still have 5 minutes. We're going to remove it from heat and it's done. So it should just rain. Great question. All right, for the chickpeas that have been strained and washed, we are going to mash them. Recipe says mash about half. More you mash, thicker your stew is gonna be. Allison, you good? Okay. So we are gonna start mashing. When I've tried this recipe before, I like my chickpeas mashed up nicely. So this is completely personal preference at this point. However much you want your chickpeas mashed, you do you. Again, I said this before, but if people weren't here or didn't hear it, I'm using a potato masher to mash these. A fork is perfectly fine. It will do the exact same job, maybe easier. Can also just use like a wooden spoon. Can use like a little glass bowl. Just getting those chickpeas smashed. All right. So I will show y'all what mine's looking like. This is probably where I'm going to leave it. You can see my chickpeas here are semi-mashed. I would say about 3/4 of them have had some amount of mashing done to them. I'm going to give my pot a stir. More olive oil. this point, I am now going to add my tomato paste. 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. We are adding this in and stirring, but we are not going to really cook it down. So we want to be ready to add the tomato paste. If you haven't done your chickpeas yet, no big deal. But I am going to add my chickpeas. These really are already cooked, so it's about heating them through. So whenever they're ready, go ahead and add them. That's part of what is so incredible about canned vegetables. They're already cooked, so they're way quicker. So if you're in a hurry, canned vegetables, frozen vegetables, the way to go. So I added my chickpeas. I'm going to add my tomato paste and stir. Again, that's 3 tablespoons. You can also eyeball this, whatever you want. All right. How we doing? Everybody feeling good? Tomato paste is in. Chickpeas are in. Next up is the broth. We are going to be adding, the recipe calls for 4. In my opinion, that makes it pretty soupy. I'm going to add around 2 cups. Because to me, that makes a really nice, thick texture that goes really well with the quinoa. But if you want a soup, add more. We want to make sure that this is low sodium if we can. Typical traditional broths have an insane amount of sodium in it. When I was picking this one out, I looked at some of the sodium in other broths, and it was up to 48% of your daily sodium needs. That is a ton. That is a lot. This one only has 6%. Ooh. There is our quinoa timer. Added our broth. We are going to stir. We are going to cover. We are going to heat on medium-high heat for 10 minutes. Set a timer for 10 minutes. Probably closer to 5, actually. I'm going to set a timer for 5. We've been cooking it for a while. Let's check our quinoa. Turn the heat off. Remove the pot from the hot stove. Put it at a different part. If you just turn the heat off and leave it where it is, it's going to keep cooking. The pot's going to keep heating. Point of this is to remove the quinoa from heat. And that is all you have to do with the quinoa at this point. Let it be. All right. How are we feeling? Anybody need anything repeated? Anybody need any help with anything? Any questions? No? Awesome. While we are getting those kind of cooked down, I'm just going to chat about why I picked this recipe and what makes this recipe so amazing. First up is the versatility. This recipe can be made to anyone's liking. It can be transformed by the ingredients. You can change the legume choice. You can omit or put more chickpeas, put beans, anything you want. You can change the vegetable. Like I said, if you don't like onion, put out something else. Put broccoli. Trying to think of other vegetables. Collard greens would be really good in this. We're going to add spinach, but you can add arugula would be incredible. There are so many choices. You can change the grain. We've got quinoa, but you can do white rice. You can do brown rice. You can do any kind of grain you want. Like I'm doing, you can also make it vegetarian. If you're using turkey, there you go. 2 options right there. You can put other kinds of protein in there. You can put fish on top of this. That would be amazing. Can also be incredible for during, before, and after pregnancy. If you're not pregnant, if you never want to be pregnant, this is still an amazing recipe. We are also going to talk about the nutrients that this recipe contains. First of all, it's low sodium. Like I talked about, we chose low sodium chickpeas. We chose low sodium. Speaking of sodium, I didn't add any salt. If you also didn't add any salt, let's go ahead and add salt. Personal preference. Sorry about that. Completely forgot about salt. Still want salt. We want to go low sodium, but salt brings flavor. Salt helps the marriage of our flavors in there. It helps our veggies stand out. It helps our tofu stand out. It helps everything. So making sure we're still adding some sodium. Sodium is not the devil. We just want to be mindful of it. Another amazing nutrient in here is fiber. There is amazing fiber in chickpeas. There's amazing fiber in quinoa. You've got veggies in there that have fiber. Fiber is incredible for if you're having any kind of bowel distress, if you're, having constipation issues, which can happen in pregnancy specifically. So this is an amazing, a nutrient that can also be focused on. The third nutrient that I like to focus on with this is iron. Iron deficiency is a major concern for pregnant people and women or menstruating people in general. Iron can be low because it's something we don't always think about. So this recipe helps address that. Pregnant individuals need 27 milligrams of sodium, 27 milligrams of iron daily. This recipe, without the quinoa by itself, has 6 milligrams. You add the quinoa, that's an additional 2.8 milligrams of iron. You add the tofu, an additional 3.4 milligrams of iron. So that means with your turkey and your quinoa, like Risa and Leela are making, that's 32% of your daily iron needs. With the tofu and the quinoa, that's 42% of your daily iron needs. If you are eating this in addition, 2 other meals plus snacks, you are hitting your daily iron needs, and that's incredible. So while I'm having this, I'm going to go ahead and stir. That is smelling very good. How's everyone feeling? We feeling good still? Smelling good in y'all's kitchen? That's awesome. All right, let's see. Oh, speaking of, timer is going off. Let's check a carrot. Let's stir around and find our thickest carrot and pull it out. I'm going to cut my carrot in half just to see how it's cooked. Give it a second to cool off. Taste your carrot. How was that doneness for y'all? If you like your carrots less cooked, there you go. If you like them more cooked, maybe it needs to cook a little longer. Here's again where that versatility comes in. If your family members do not like the texture of carrots, you can make it however they want it. For me, in my house, that carrot was good, was well cooked. So I think mine's done. Nope. Did this last time. We're adding our spinach at this point. Risa said she bought fresh spinach. I have frozen spinach. Whatever you like. Where are I am just going to add my spinach right to my pot. And we're stirring. Just like I said with canned, Frozen vegetables can be so incredible if you are on a time crunch because they're also cooked. So you don't need to worry about cooking them all the way through. Most of the time with frozen and canned, it's about heating, about how well it's going to taste. Because, like, I mean, I don't want to eat frozen spinach frozen, right? I don't want to eat. Some vegetables just are better heated. So just stirring those in, getting it cooked. If you're using fresh spinach, getting it to the barely wilted stage is perfect because it's going to keep cooking. The heat of the food is going to keep cooking it. All right. I am turning the heat off on my pot. All right. Who's feeling ready to serve our meal up? Anybody? I guess it's a better question. Anybody ready to serve? We still waiting on the cooking? That's fine. Oh, while we're doing this, I can talk about my final point. This recipe is extremely cheap. You may have noticed. The entire recipe cost, using Kroger's prices, $24.49 with the turkey. With the tofu, the total cost, $20.19 for every single thing on this recipe. And these next prices are with the assumption you're going to use the rest of your quinoa, you're going to use the rest of the olive oil, you're going to use the rest of all of your other ingredients you purchased at some other point. So using just the ingredients you used with the turkey, this costs $3.76 per serving. With the tofu, that's $2.68 per serving. So you're looking at a very, very economically smart choice for your family, especially if you're concerned about finances with a pregnancy. This can be such a good way to get a lot of nutrients in for fairly cheap. Next step, we're just gonna fluff our quinoa. So I'm gonna use a fork and just go in and just kind of lightly fluff my quinoa. I can show you all here in this other. Fluffing, fluffing, fluffing. I used white quinoa, but you know, there's that tricolor quinoa that has the brown ones in there. That's just as good. Whatever you have on hand, whatever you like to eat, purchase, whatever. Ooh, this would also be really good with lentils, which have a lot of plant-based protein in there. Incredible way to increase protein. All right. It's like Leela's still stirring. How we doing? Good? We're good? Okay. All right, I'm gonna serve my bowl, but you guys go on your own. It is not a complicated assembly. It's quinoa in the stew. So kind of self-explanatory. Self-explanatory. That felt wrong, sorry. So a cup of quinoa makes 4 servings. So, I mean, use that as a guide. Choosing about a quarter of the quinoa you prepped, but not a big deal. As you can see in your pot, this makes a lot of food. Maybe more than 4 servings for your family, depending on how much y'all eat. Give yourself a nice, good serving of this so you can get all that iron. Ooh, spinach also has iron. So more spinach, more iron. There you go. Here's our bowl. We're also going to add, if you chose, some Parmesan or any other kind of cheese. You don't want cheese on it, don't add cheese. You want a different kind of cheese, add a different kind of cheese. Since I forgot sodium or adding salt, it may need a little bit more salt for your preference. Maybe some more pepper. Maybe it needs a little more heat. Whatever the case may be. Let's dig in. Allison, yours looked gorgeous. Look at that. Look how beautiful. I love it, guys. I love all the textures in there. The carrot, mine has a little bit of crunch. We got the quinoa in there for fluffy. We got the spinach for like a nice, soft, rich flavor. We got the chickpeas add a good thickness to it and good bite because the tofu can be really soft. Another way, if you don't like the texture of tofu cooked like this, you can always like pan fry or air fry and then add it right on top instead of cooking it in with it. I think cooking it in helps get a lot of those amazing flavors into the tofu, but a texture issue is not worth that. So just cooking it on its own is a perfectly valid way too. At this point, you can taste it and start thinking, you know, when I make this again, is there another, you know, flavor I kind of would love to have in there? This would be really good, like if you added a pesto. Does anybody else have any other flavor ideas they think they might like in this?
Well, I was thinking Mexican would be really
Yes,
good too.
absolutely. This would be so easy to, you know, do it with a rice, do it with Mexican cheese on top, maybe cojita, some kind of that kind of cheese, adding taco seasoning to this. Again, it just demonstrates how versatile this recipe can be. It is such a base recipe that it can just be made however you like. Another thing I just want to mention super quickly, if cooking can be intimidating for you on this part, the creativity, the changing side, you can just follow the recipe to a T. Recipes are made for a reason. Recipes are popular for a reason. You do not have to have creativity in cooking. Cooking can be formulaic. Cooking can be scientific. And I think that that helps with a lot of the anxiety that I feel about it. Find a recipe, follow a recipe, and you're good. Anybody have any questions? No problem if not. I'm not like teaching class. I'm not going to call on anybody, but I just wanted to make sure. All right, that's awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining. I'm going to try to do this more often, so hopefully you guys might want to join again. I hope you enjoy the recipe. I hope you get some leftovers. And yeah, just let me know if you make it again. Go ahead and send me a picture. I'd love to see. Thank y'all so much. I'm going to stop
Thank you.
now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Lane.
Thank you, guys.